Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Sumo from This Hours, and currently I am working as a head of uh, head of business and project operations office for This Hours. In the Mujalu related projects, my responsibility is like the assisting the DFSP onboarding process and also training to the designated head operation team. Okay, so today I would like to talk about the head operation readiness from the head operator perspective. Okay, let me start. What is head operation? Okay, in this slide, I explain what the head operation is. So head operation team's responsibility are the managing centralization and the coordinating function in the Mujalu payment scheme. So it means that we need to ensure the HEB receive the payment from the payer, DFSP, and also we route to the correct destination payee, DFSP, based on the unique identifier like the mobile phone numbers, bank ID or alias, etc. And also we need to ensure that all the participants, means that such as the mobile money operators, bank, microfinance institution, fintech, etc., can connect the payment scheme and can transact with each other, regardless of their internet technology and the core banking system. And also the health operation team is coordinating with the DFSP to resolve the transition disputes following to find the dispute, the solution procedures and the SLA. And also they are acting as the central point of contact between DFSP, settlement bank, and the customer support teams to ensure the transition and consistent information sharing. Okay, here is the information that the designated high operation team should study and prepare for the kinds of the process and the operation. Firstly, the high operation, the design team members trying to understand the end-to-end transaction flow in the Mujalu payment scheme. And also they need to learn how to settle the transaction, how to perform the settlement process based on the settlement model, such as the finance model, and how to reconcile the transition. The head operation then need to enter in the three phases of the Mujalu, such as the account lookup phase, code phase, transfer phase, like that. Additionally, the team should have the knowledge related to the transition log checking process or monitoring process, and also they should be familiar with the tools, the transition log monitoring tools, such as the Grafana to something like that. So they should have the knowledge regarding the transition log monitoring tools. From the compliant perspective, the health operation team need to understand how the payment schemes integrate with the fraud management system, and also how to detect and monitor the fraud. The last one is that as the support process is one of the responsibilities for the head operation team. So that is why the team should have the knowledge how to prepare the support flow for the customer support process. So in this slide, I included the document list. So as we all know, the documents are the essential for every process. So in the payment scheme, the health operators and the FSPs use the operation portals, such as the finance portal. That portal is used by the head operation team, and also the DFSP portal, and then the payment manager portal used by the DFSP. So that is why the health operation team and the FSP need to familiar with the operation portals. And also need to give the training to the DFSP for the portals that they will use in this payment scheme. So besides the trainings, the user guides for the operation portals need to be well prepared and share with the participating DFSP as required. For the settlements and support process, the health operation team should prepare for the standard operating time, such as the day-to-day settlement process and the day-to-day support process flow. Additionally, for the dispute cases, the dispute management document or dispute management framework. It includes the dispute scenarios and resolutions. So whenever the DFSB encounter the dispute cases in the payment scheme, they can immediately take the action and resolve the disputes immediately following the defined procedure in the dispute management framework. And also the last one I added is the SLA document. It's in the SLA document, we include the information such as the responsibility of the participating DFSB, settlement banks, and the head operation team. And also we include the system uptime, the requirement for the DFSB internet system, and also the uptime of the payment switch, something like that. So that is why the SLA document is one of the document the head operation team should prepare. This one is the list of the training that is required to have for the head operations, designated head operators, and the DFSB. As we all know, based on the previous the morning session, the hours are performed as a technology provider and the system integrator for the Liberia project. So in that project, for instance, the health operation in readiness, we provided the training session for the operation borders and provided the user guide document to the designated the health operation team members. And also from the technical side, we train the designated system integration to maybe the designated the system integration is the based in the Africa, it should be the local something like that. That is why we provided the system, we provided the training related to the technical, to the designated system integration thing. That the training was like the deployment process of the Bujalu Hub and also the deployment process of the payment manager that is used as an integration tool in our project. So this is the list of the training we provided to the operations and the system integration team. Okay, the next slide. The next one is the readiness of settlement process. So in the initial phase of the project, we identify the settlement bank who perform the settlement instruction issued by the hub. So between the head operator and the settlement bank, there should be an agreement, including the SLA responsibility of the each team. Each team makes the head operation team and the settlement bank team. So other than that, we should define the net debit and percentage, and also the minimum balance of the liquidity amount, and also the settlement time, like this settlement time should be 2 p.m. for daily basis or something like that. So for your information, net debit, what is the net debit? So net debit acts a limit of a get placed on the DFSB fund available for transaction. That should not be exceeded to the liquidity amount in this in the Bujalu payment schemes. So for the documentation process, we prepare the standard operating procedure file, including the detailed instructions and direction, which helps the head operation team to stay on track and not to miss the important steps during the settlement process. So we generated those kinds of the SOP document and provided to the head operation team as an assistant. In order to provide the good service to our customers, our customer means the DFSB. So after onboarding, so the customer survey is a critical task for the head operation team. So as far as our practice, we have the survey desk portal where DFSB, our customer, can create tickets and risks to us when they encounter the issues or errors or difficulty related to the payment schemes. And also to consider the priorities of the tickets and issue, we define the issue type like the issue is like the service request, it is the incident or problem or change request, something like that. We also define the types of the issue in our service portal. And when the DFSB create or raise the ticket, they can charge the relevant ticket type in the service portal. And then we develop the documents, including the service workflow, and then the SLA, like SLAs mean that for the major issue, the first response time will be 1 hour, something like that. for the rest of issue that there is a separate SLA for the other non-major issues, something like that. So the health operation team needs to generate the standard operating procedure for the survey workflow, and also for the disputes and risk. As I explained earlier, we should have the dispute and risk management framework document for this payment scheme. In this slide, I would like to talk about the capacity planning. So regarding the capacity planning, the objective is to ensure the settlements and support process can efficiently handle for a significant transaction volumes. Let me present from the settlements and support perspectives. So head operation teams need to monitor the liquidity and transaction volume and value. If the transaction volumes are larger after the post life, we should plan to increase the NDC and the liquidity amount in the payment schemes. Because in the initial phase of the scheme, it is a good net to set the next NDC percentage and set the minimum liquidity amount with less amount, but after monitoring the transaction volume, it is good enough to hide the amount of the percentage of the NDC and the amount of the liquidity for every DFSB like that. And also, it is in the initial, it is good enough to set the settlement time, like every 2 p.m. Daily, the head operation team will close the window and perform the settlement process, something like that. But based on the transaction volumes and based on the review and monitoring process, the head operation team have to adjust the settlement times and frequency, something like that. And also, it is important that the coordination with the settlement banks, that process will assist the switch operation team to ensure that the FSB have the sufficient liquidity amount in their liquidity account at the settlement bank. As required, as needed, we have to update the existing documents based on the experience and lesson learned from the stakeholders, something like that. From the support side, we have to inspire the support process along with the incident volumes. If we form the SLA breach, we have to adjust the support process to ensure the coverage to meet the increased transaction and incident volume. Other than that, when we have to onboard the new DFSB in production, and also we have a plan to deploy the new release in the production environment, the participating DFSB and the other stakeholders are informed ahead of time. Maybe we should set up 24 hours notice or 48-hour notice for the schedule maintenance window, something like that. And also we have to make sure that payment system and other relevant teams and components are ready for the new release in the payment scheme. Okay, so this is the last slide in my presentation. So this slide is talk about the chain release, chain request control and the release management. So, so as a head operators, we have to prepare the flow of the chain management process. Example, once the modular new version is out, the focal points maybe from the operation team needs to do the impact analysis first. And also they should test the new release features and such as the testing, the transition, and also check the existing feature is whether the existing feature is functioning or not. And also they will test the new release features in the payment scheme and in the related the operation portals. Based on the test result, the focal points report to the chain control board. So in the health operation team, we should form the chain control board with few members. So after the focal point for the testing thing, the focal point to perform the text for the new release feature. So that testing process is then they inform to the chain control board team along with the test results. So once the release plan is out and the chain control board members agree to enhance and deploy the new release in the production environment. So with the health operation team inform the relevant stakeholders about the window settlement times. And also the important point is that we must have the robot blanks because I think you already have those kinds of the experience. Like inside bank, they have the window maintenance. They inform ahead of time to the customer during this time from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. something like that. The transaction cannot be performed something like that. So we should consider those kinds of the plan as a robot plan because when we deploy the new changes in the payment scheme, we also we may encounter the issue during the deployment process and release process. That is why we should have the well prepared the robot plan as well. And then as a documentation process, we should have the proper documentation for all the changes, for all change configuration and the relevant information. So we should have those kinds of the document related to the release item. So one next important point is that we have to assess the outcomes, lesson lengths after we deploy the news item in the production environment tools. We should collect the feedback and the comment from the stakeholder and also the user. So we have to assess those kinds of information and we have to collect the lesson learned and information. Based on that, in the next release window, we perform like we can enhance our process. So that's all from that's all for my presentation. Let me stop my presentation here.
Is there any question for Suman?
Yeah, okay, I'll grab it.
Hi, Sue. Thanks so much again for the presentation. Jerome here from the Philippines, and I'm interested to know about the settlement procedures that you're working with your clients right now or partners. You did mention about NDC, the net debit cap, right? So I would like to ask, what's the typical threshold in terms of setting the minimum? Are there any standards you're following, such as like, at the 20%, you need to replenish your liquidity account? And the second question would be, what's the typical settlement window for that matter for most of your, I think, DFSP partners right now? Because for the Philippines, we do have right now an existing scheme that's running at 3-window settlement. I'm not sure if it's as typical or if you can share your thoughts on that as well. Thank you.
For the first question, I would like to know about the standard, the percentage of the net perfect debt and the liquidity amount. Actually, it's based on the same organization. First, for example, like it's Liberia project, the scheme owner is the preference of Liberia. So, we provided the information. We have to set up the liquidity amount, what is the minimum amount of the liquidity that should be prevented by the DFSB, and also what percentage would you like to set up to cover the transaction volume based on the Liberian transaction volume, something like that. So okay, and also in our country, we implemented one payment scheme, so we call it the YPay. So in that payment scheme, we set up the 60 the NTC percentage, 60% NTC percentage. But in the Liberian, there is a different one. And also, I think we had a chance to talk about with the other payment scheme owner. So in this game, I have learned that they give the permission 100% percentage of the NTC because but they set up one policy that every DFSB should inform to the head operation team when they would like to deposit or withdraw the fund from the liquidity account, from the settlement and something like that. So actually, I don't remember the country name. So yeah, so it's based on the decision from the scheme owner. Mm-hmm.
Can I add perhaps like if you allow me like one extra piece of information regarding this, right? I think it depends on your risk appetite and the profile of the DFSPs. And based on this is how you will set up the NDC and also like how the settlement application works. So typically, like, you know, if it's an RTGS, how many times, like, you know, how the RTGS operates and so on, and like, what's the window for settlement? Does it operate during weekends and so on? So this is typically the three parameters that you will consider to set up the NDC.
For the second question, you would like to know how the settlement process is performed during the payment scheme. So currently, the settlement process is the manual process. So like we set up the settlement settlement time. So the settlement time is like, for example, 3 p.m. daily basis. So the switch operation team they close the window. Sorry, for your information, currently we are performing the settlement based on the defined model. Defined model means we set up the fans, actual fans between participating DFSP based on the net amount. The net amount means that from DFSP 1 to DFSP 2, they fan the transfer 100 USD, something like that. And also in the same day, the DFSP 2 to DFSP 1 transfer 50 the USD. So the net amount between them only 50, right? So during the settlement process, the switch operation team settled only the net fan amount between the participating DFSP. So the switch operation team close the window and they generate the settlement report. And also DFSP can use the DFSP portal I mentioned before. The DFSP can generate the settlement related report on their own by using the DFSP portal.
And can I add again like something? So basically, like as you know, the Module platform is flexible enough so that you can configure what type of settlement cycle that you have. In this case, someone mentioned the settlement is manual, but in other instances, the idea is like to connect directly to the RTGS system. And I'm seeing Bangladesh Bank here, that's a plan to connect directly to the RTGS system, for example.
Very interesting.
Hello, my name is Duncan, and I do have two questions, especially on your operations. The first question is on change management. Considering that you do have a lot of partners across different time zones, how do you standardize your changes that are being done? Do you do it? Do you have specific timelines that you perform this change, and do you do per time zones? And the second question is on the release process. For the release process that you are following, do you use the DevOps process? And I want just to understand, after the release, is there an hypercare period or what I can call babysitting that you guys do? Thank you.
For the first question, you would like to know the relevant time for the schedule window, right? So yeah, actually, like let me based on the librarian project. So the schedule with maintenance time should be the librarian time, but and also we need to consider the schedule maintenance times of the DFSP because DFSP are the mobile managed operator, right? So they have their own schedule window maintenance time. So for example, we set up the every Tuesday the after operation hours, like the 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. So we set up the schedule maintenance time. But that time can be different from the schedule maintenance time from the DFSP side. That is why to set up the schedule maintenance time, we we should request the information from the participating DFSP and also the how can I say that the timeline that is mostly aligned with the DFSP schedule maintenance time is the best way we should set up in the payment. So this is for the first question.
The second question is in regards to the release process that you having. Do you have an hypercare session after the releases that you've done, just to pick out some issues if there are any issues? Okay, maybe during your releases, when you're doing the releases, usually after every major release that you do, have done a major release, there are some, we may pick some issues. Do you have an hypercare period, say 1 week, do you have a hypercare period just to the operations teams and the product team just to collaborate and work together to resolve the issues? Thank you.
Currently, we are running the closed group testing, the library project. So in the when the famous thing is go live, we should have the burger server and also the how can I say the data recovery plan. So like you mentioned that we are afraid. Actually, we would not like to be stop to transition from the end user perspective. So if we have secondary server, so we can route. How can I say that main server is we will perform the release management and we will apply new release in the main server, something like that. So we should route the transition to the backend server, something like that. If we have two kinds of server, we can manage that kinds of process to be release release as a process. That, for example, like if we don't have two servers, like we have only one main server, and we will perform the release management, release deployment process to the main server. And like I mentioned before, we have to inform the consumer the service will be available from this time to this time. Okay. During that in our deployment process, we face or we encounter that issue. We should have a better run before deploying the changes. We should have a better. So the robot plan should be the robot plan should be we restore the packet. We restore the nearest we restore the nearest packet session because that situation is a business issue and that the new release process is not that is why the packet plan is like restore the packet data in the main server.
Again, like if that's okay, I'm gonna chip in as well because what basically like Fit the Work is using for the project is the open source platform, right? And so as part of, I think part of your question is actually related to the open source platform and how we do like, release management. So we follow a standard like, agile process of like doing the release. And Sam sitting on the back is basically like managing the release of the open source. And then what happens is like when there are bugs found on the on the platform, either Sam's team directly will fix it, or what also happens is some adopters of the product version will also say, hey, we fix that and donate this back to the open source. And to your point about like, time zone and so on, because each adopter will consume the open source code and then they're responsible for their own deployment. They then, as Suman explained, manage effectively like when they want to implement the release.
So my question and comment relevant with the settlement options. So as you knew that 3 settlement options are available in the Moduloop system. One is DNS based, that is deferred net settlement based. For this settlement option, net debit cap is required. Another one is gross settlement basis. And third option is hybrid settlement model. So for gross settlement and hybrid settlement, does it require to set up the net debit cap for the DFSPs? And this is my question. And another thing is like you have experience with different country or different scheme implementation. What's option basically they are choosing for their settlement purposes? These two.
Okay, so you would like to know about the deferred settlement process and the gross settlement process, right?
For DNS, for and the hybrid model, does it require to set up
Yeah, it's a short question. Perhaps if that's okay, I'm gonna answer partially this question. Yeah, it is because effectively the net debit cap manage the amount of liquidity that can be used by any participant. So it's independent to some extent of like the settlement mode that you configure within the system. Because for each transaction, basically like the balance of the DFSP will be checked and the amount will be reserved. And so like basically what the net debit cap do is like it limits the total amount of liquidity that you can use.
Yeah, that's true. But let's say this is a pre-funding model. I am a DFSP, so I know that for myself, 1 million is required. So I already pre-fund that 1 million in this, module IIPS system. So, and all the transactions are settled gross basis. So why should I require net debit cap setup?
You don't have to set it up, right? Like it's an option that is available to you.
Already 1 million is available,
Yes,
right? And there will be a threshold for me. Let's say 10% is remaining, so I will have notification that your your fund is getting below 10% or exhausted. Then I will try to make it available for next transactions.
Yes.
So that is my point. So should I then set up the net debit cap?
So basically, like again, the idea of the net debit cap is to limit the liquidity available. So on your example of 1 million, right? The point is like, if for X, Y, Z reason, all of a sudden in the system, you don't want to use the 1 million, but want to use less, then you will set up the net debit cap to make sure that basically the ratio that you don't want to use is not used. And what will happen is like, if there is a transaction, you have like, a bucket of transaction coming.
The main
No, I understand like your point.
Basic point is fund, right?
Yes.
If I pre-fund 1 million, then definitely I will try to have the transactions up to my threshold. Let's say 10% threshold. So up to 0.9 million, I will allow the transactions.
So
right?
why basically like the net debit cap has been introduced, even in case of like gross settlement? How do you do when the RTGS is not open?
For RTGS system, there's no debit cap. No.
No, but so the way the net debit cap is used is basically like to make sure that if you have an RTGS which is closed, regardless of its net setting or gross, that you still have some liquidity available to process transaction on this day, right? So it's basically a way to organize your liquidity.
If I get you correctly, so here for gross settlement option, so net debit cap is kind of my threshold.
So the net
Exactly.
the net debit cap is always your threshold, regardless of basically the settlement option. Whether it's net or gross. And why it was implemented is basically to help you manage your liquidity, because an instant payment is available 24/7. Your settlement system may not be available 24/7. And in this case, what you want to do is like, for example, your RTGS system settle gross, but your transaction come on a Saturday. You want to make sure that potentially you have enough liquidity for the transaction to still go on Saturday and be approved. So that's why like the two notions are slightly different.
Okay.
But I can
Got it.
I don't want to hold the floor. I can walk you through some concrete example after the session.
Okay. Thank you.
Just adding on to what Julie just mentioned in terms of that the net debit cap is put, we do have an example of our own. In Pakistan's IPS, we have a participation model. There are direct participants which pre-fund the liquidity, and there are indirect participants. So the pre-funding is happened through the direct participant, and the net debit cap is also put by the direct participant on all of the corresponding indirect participants. So if I pre-funded 10 million, and I want, let's say, my indirect participant number 1 to have only 0.1 million, the other one to have 0.2 million. So I'd be setting all those net debit caps individually on those participants, and the remaining liquidity I would use for my own, transactions. So that is also the concept of NDC, which we are currently using in the pre-funded context. So just I wanted to add that to what you said. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there any other question? I can see Simeon just walked in, so no, okay. I thought you wanted to interrupt us.
My name is Leo. So just to follow up on that same question about the net transfer. Two different accounts for inflows versus outflows. Inbound payments versus outbound. Different accounts for inbound versus.
So every participating DFSB has to open when, for example, in the payment scheme, we use only one currency, USD.
Yes.
For example,
Okay.
so every participating DFSB has to open only one liquidity account at the designated settlement bank.
Okay. So that should answer the question about the net position. Okay. Yeah,
Net position, in net position, the net position is like the, I think you refer to the net amount that I explained in the settlement process, right? Okay, so let me generally explain the settlement process. So for example, like, let me rephrase my example again. We onboarded the DFSB 1 and 2 in the payment scheme, okay? These are the active participating DFSB, okay? In the day when the DFSB 1 transfer the 100 USD to the DFSB 2, okay? On the same day, the end user of the DFSB2 make the fund transfer to the end user of the DFSB1 again. Okay, so actually from DFSB1 to DFSB2, the transaction amount is 100 USD. Okay, the next transaction is from DFSB2 to DFSB1, the transaction amount is 50 USD. But in the settlement process, based on the defined net model, we don't settle for every transaction. We settle only the net transaction amount between the participating DFSB. So based on my created the scenario, the net amount between DFSB1 and DFSB2 is only 50 USD. The payer side will be the DFSB1 because the end user transfer 100 USD, right? So the payers will be stay the DFSB1 and the receiving side will be the DFSB2. So in the settlement process, in the settlement report, you can see that the net amount is 50 USD, and then the sending side will be the DFSB1 bank account, and then on the receiving side, you will see that the bank account of the DFSB2. So the settlement bank will make the actual fund transfer between participating DFSB.
All right. I don't see any other questions. No. All right, then. Thank you so much, Iman, for all your insight.
Thank you.